Welcome back to the Frith Guild podcast, where we will be exploring chapters 11 to 15 of Warlord Arcanist by Shami Stovall. Chapter 11, Islands in the Distance. Zelfree dislikes rats and has bugs in his pockets, while Ryker isn't as talented. Moss believes she can protect Ryker if he learns. Xaxis and Addy argue over her pursuit of true forms. Volke continues his training, and they arrive in Fortuna. Chapter 12, 200 Arcanist. Volke is prepped for a fashion intervention to make a good impression. Thane interrupts his nap to discuss loneliness. Volke asks Ilya to interact with Thane. They arrive in Fortuna to meet 200 Arcanists. Chapter 13, Where there is fear, you will find power. Zelfree helps Volke dress fancy. Fortuna is run by lizard people. Volke shows off his mark. Eventide wants him to ride in on TK, causing fear among onlookers. Chapter 14, The Astral Tower. Adelgis coordinates communication. Volke enters the Astral Tower incognito. An amusing interaction with the guards is noted, and curiosity about the Astral Tower continues. Chapter 15, Twilight Dragon Arcanist. Volke is led to a banquet hall. Thane causes a ruckus, and Eventide protects him. King Odion, the Twilight Dragon Arcanist, mocks Volke's past, leading to a tense confrontation.
Welcome back to the Frith Guild podcast. I'm your host, Eric.
Scott.
And today we'll be going through chapters 11 through 15 of World Serpent Arcanist. But before we get into that, we want to wish everybody a Merry Christmas.
Ooh.
As you can see, we're kind of decked out here ourselves. And do also want to remind everybody that Labyrinth Arcanist is coming out here in just a few short weeks. We got the Nexus finale coming up sometime in later January, and then Words of Power, and even Demon Card Enforcer 3 coming out mid-February. So definitely lots of fun, exciting things. So the holiday season is not over yet.
All your reading for the year is going to come out in January.
With our episode that we're going to do, our break in the book, we are actually going to sit down with John Stovall and talk to him a little bit about Demon Card Enforcer. We're going to be going over the first and second one, in addition to hopefully getting some ooey gooey details about number 3 coming out. So keep our fingers crossed on that. So we'll look forward to that here. And with that, we'll get into chapter 11, Islands in the Distance.
We left off with Zelfree training Ryker. Moss is there as well. Ryker is a little iffy about some of the transformations. In order to show some of the skills and to show that she really can protect Ryker, Moss ends up turning into a bunch of rats, chasing the two of them down. Zelfree dislikes the rats, also ends up finding some bugs in his pockets as well. So with this little kind of display of talent, Moss ends up reiterating her point that she's confident she can protect Ryker, even though she's not what one would normally consider to be offensive powerhouse. Xaxis and Addy are getting into a little arguing match over how Addy is spending her time. Xaxis feels like she's spending too much time getting to the true form. Addy feels almost like she's not spending enough because there is time she's training and doing other things that aren't related to her true form. So a real kind of back and forth between them.
I actually kind of sympathize with Xaxis at this point, and I know that's a pretty big thing. But I kind of agree with him because everybody else is trying to become a better fighter, honing their abilities to fight the Second Ascension, basically do whatever they can. She doesn't really feel like she's putting in that much effort towards the Second Ascension, more so just trying to get that true form so that way she can fulfill her mother's wishes, essentially.
And there's this hope that once she has her true form, she'll be almost unstoppable by the way they kind of describe her powers. So it's very much this long shot, if she gets her true form, she can fulfill mother's wishes and then somehow will be able to come back and save the Second Ascension. There's a lot of surmising going on what a true form Phoenix could do. Throughout this whole process, Volke pretty much continues to go on with his training. He's discussing with Zelfree, and Zelfree drops his comment that he used to know a guy who was a Manicor Arcanist. So obviously trying to hide the fact that he and Callisto used to be friends there. Volke, after half a night's rest, we'll say, ends up getting woken up by Laishel. Aviana is trying to train, and Volke goes over to help train, master her powers. We end up with another scuffle between, this time, Xaxis and Volke. And Xaxis, in order to prove his power, kind of clips Volke with a punch, which isn't something I think either of them were really expecting.
Volke is... The way he reacts to it was like, oh, there's no way Zaxxas is going soft on me. I think that Volke is just superior at this point because I didn't say like Zaxxas punched like a little girl, but kind of got the feeling that Zaxxas didn't have a good punch on him, or at least Volke absorbed a lot of it and didn't really feel it.
Yeah, it definitely seems like Volke has come a long way in his fighting skills. As their skirmish continues on, we do finally arrive in Fortuna.
Yay! And this is where chapter 12 picks up at 200 Arcanist. Volke is sent back to his quarters because he's got to get cleaned up. He's got to make himself look presentable. Ilya and Karna are waiting in his quarters to give him fashion intervention time. Everybody is saying that he has to make a very good first impression as a warlord and that he needs to just deal with it. They kind of compromise with him because he's tired, dog tired, and they let him take a nap while he's in the bath. And as he's drifting off to sleep, Fane just kind of pops out of nowhere and was like, I've got a question for you, buddy.
Is now an awkward time?
Like, I know that you're in the bath and all, but I just wanted to discuss that I'm feeling kind of lonely right now. And just kind of like, wait a minute. What are you saying, Fane? And he actually says that he's feeling lonely because Moonbeam is basically with the Guildmaster at all times at this point, I imagine. Relaying information, giving people dreams, all that kind of stuff. So Fane disappears. Ilya comes in with some information. She's kind of basically makes sure that he's awake because they're already arrived at Fortuna at this point, and he kind of wants Fane to just check in on Ilya every once in a while so that she doesn't feel lonely, he doesn't feel lonely. Maybe get on a better terms here. Maybe this will actually help Ilya get over some of her anger with pirates in general. I know we're at book 6. So we've had legitimately 3, 4, 5, and 6. So legitimately like 4 books where Fane has tried to make his amends with Ilya. Hasn't quite gotten there yet, but maybe just keep wearing her down. Volke is able to talk to Terrakanna telepathically, or at least Terrakanna is able to telepathically talk to Volke. He still has to like speak out loud, and basically they're like, oh yeah, by the way, we're in Fortuna, so like you still kind of need to get dressed, and he's gonna have to go out and meet 200 Arcanists as he steps out as the World Serpent Arcanist, as the Warlord Arcanist.
It brings us to chapter 13, where there's fear, you will find power. So Zelfree, of all people, is going to teach Volke how to dress fancy. There are what can be compared to as lizard people in the Astral Tower, which is the clock tower in Fortuna, and they run the whole city. So we need to go and make sure they're impressed, but because they're all hundreds of years old, we're going to dress up in fancy hundreds of year old clothing, which Zelfree being hundreds of years old, which is something that Volke kind of realizes that we were never really told, but it is implied that Arcanists do have a longer lifespan, actually has experience in how to dress up. So he's got a whole bunch of ruffles he's putting on his neck, and you just picture like the Pride and Prejudice get-ups going.
Yeah.
Zelfree does reassure Volke that Linus is dead to him and that that's not something that's gonna come up and compromise in any way. As he continues to help Volke get dressed, we realize that because his Arcanist mark is essentially on his chest and down his body, he has to unbutton his coat an awkward number of buttons just so that you can see it. But otherwise, there's no way to tell that he actually is the World Serpent Arcanist.
So Volke did mention about how the buttons went all the way up to his neck, or basically like under his chin. I completely understand that feeling, because like in the Marine Corps dress blue uniform, it goes up to the base of your chin essentially, and if you don't pay attention to how big your neck is before you go to the ball, like that thing is tight. You basically have to move with it's almost like a neck brace.
Yeah, it does not look comfortable. Either the dress blues or Volke's outfit.
But hey, at least the dress blues look good. I mean, I'm not sure about Volke, but
I'd probably take the dress blues over Volke's get up. For some reason, after Volke gets dressed, he goes to Karna and Elias to get a haircut. I don't know why these steps occurred in this order. It seems like it'd be a lot cleaner to cut your hair and then get dressed, but was not how they had it set up.
Well, I bet Zelfree was like, Eviana and Karna are going to freaking jump his bones if he walks out of that bath without being dressed. So we should probably, for the sake of some time, wait until after he gets dressed to get him his haircut.
Very good point. There could be some jealous moments going on there. Volke is talking with Eventide kind of about how to approach everything, and her suggestion is that, Ruma always made an entrance riding in on his Leviathan, changing the weather when he came in. So the town would really appreciate if he did something kind of magic and cool as well. So she suggests that he rides in on Terracana, one, to kind of show off Terracana because nobody's seen a world serpent before, but also to try and help establish some power. He does this, but when he arrives, pretty much everyone's afraid of him and just kind of stares at him awkwardly. There's not really any celebration or rejoicing. It's just a lot of awkward tension.
With that, we go into chapter 14, the Astral Tower. Volke is probably as shocked or as afraid as everybody else there because he's like, oh shit, everybody's staring at me like stage fright. He finally kind of runs away, gets off in an alley, and everybody loses sight of him. And he takes his sash off, and he buttons his shirt up, and he ties his sash around his head. At some point, Adele just realizes that he kind of disappears. So he starts giving Volke directions to get to the Astral Tower. And as Volke is approaching the gates of the Astral Tower, they have a couple of troll arcanists out front and doing protection for guards. And this is one of those really good funny banner scenes that you get to see. And because his forehead is covered up, the troll arcanists are like, who's this guy? He's just walking up acting like he wants to come in, like, oh, of course, your majesty. And do you understand who's all here and who they're waiting for? And they asked Volke what his name was, and they called him Majesty Doorknob from Amnesia Kingdom.
It's people with not a lot of power flexing like they have a lot of power, which I think we've all run into them a few times.
And it's just that oh, you're some peon, no worries. And then Volke takes his sash off his head, and they're like, crap, he's a nightmare arcanist, just absolutely we're so sorry, you must have been part of the Inquisitor squad, we're so sorry. And then basically they're like, if you lost your nightmare, then you must be somebody of decent standing, so honor. So the other thing is, I'm wondering, I don't remember, but I wonder if we get more detail about the Astral Tower later on in the books, whether it's this book or future books. I don't remember.
I don't think it really, this seems to be the only time they really mention it.
Right, because we focus on the astral, the constellations, that kind of thing of it. That was the big part of the clock. It's not a clock tower, so it's very nice and elaborate, and it looks really cool. So, at least from the book, seems really cool.
It does bring us to chapter 15, the Twilight Dragon Arcanist. So Volke realizes that amid his running around the town and trying to hide his Arcanist mark, he now is kind of sweaty and disheveled and does not look like a good world serpent Arcanist. So he pretty much ruined everything that Eventide and Zelfree were trying to prepare for him. Fane leads him into the banquet hall. There are these little symbols that are above the rooms pretty much stating their purpose, so you don't have to be able to speak the language, you can just look at the pictures. This really just feels like Skyrim, where you have to look at the pictures and then turn the thing to get the door to open. Oh yeah, this is the kitchen. We got to match that up. Volke asks Fane about advice on motivational speeches, but Fane has only really heard them from Callisto, so it mostly involved threats of you dying if you don't follow. So not quite what Volke was looking for.
Don't steal
from Callisto. As he enters, there's 5 Mongu Owl Arcanists, and they're, again, the lizard people or owl people that run the city. Along with them, there's also a Star Tiger Arcanist. There's what Volke realizes are 2 Dragon Arcanists as well. When Fane comes into the room, his invisibility essentially fades. It's not Nullstone, but there is something else going on, and the whole group is able to react. They don't really know who Fane is or why he's supposed to be there. Eventide has to cover, essentially saying, like, yeah, he shouldn't be here, but he's the bodyguard for the World Serpent Arcanist. It's okay, we don't need to kill him.
I imagine the look on Fane's face of when everybody notices that he was there. Because he's probably got his hands in his pockets, just like chilling, and then when they're staring at him, like, does that like look around like, oh shoot, they can see me.
It's very much how it feels. And kind of despite this conversation, the Star Tiger Arcanist like jumps in to subdue him, and the Star Tiger itself jumps on. Luckily, Eventide is able to cast a barrier that actually protects Fane from the attack. We do find out that King Odion from Javin is the Twilight Dragon Arcanist, so one of the 2 Dragon Arcanists that Volke met. Volke gives his introduction and pretty much just becomes the laughingstock. People are laughing that he's only 17, his parents abandoned him, he was a gravekeeper. They aren't really sold on his story of the World Serpent Lair, which is pretty much like, yeah, me and a bunch of my buddies kind of went in and got the World Serpent, and like the tree ate us. Like, it just was not sold very well, so they don't feel like he's the rightful World Serpent Arcanist. We do find out the Twilight Dragon Arcanist asks if he killed Luther to bond with the World Serpent Arcanist, and Volke has to admit that no, I didn't kill him, like he died trying to protect me. And this, we'll get to the bestiary, and this question makes a little bit more sense once we get to the bestiary. But there's just a lot of tension between Volke and
First off, how did you say the king's name?
Odion? I don't know if that's how you say it.
I say, well, again, probably need to consult the all-knowing Shammy, but I've always said King Odion, but like I can totally hear both ways.
I don't know. These names are tough. It's like Jose. Jose really got us.
Oh my gosh, yeah. So let me know what you guys list or have always like thought his name was Odion or Odion. Please let us know. And then the other thing, I feel like Volke could have done just a touch better at describing everything about his past, all these questions that he was asked, just a little bit more detail. I'm not talking like filler bustering everybody, but just maybe one more sentence worth.
Sell it a little.
Right.
This whole kerfuffle ends with Odion threatening to kill Volke and essentially bond with Terracana. So obviously we know that Volke and Terracana are connected, but the rest of the world thinks that somebody else could bond with Terracana if Volke is killed. That brings us to the end of chapter 15. So a lot of scuffles going on in this little journey here.
Dan's favorite, by the way. Star Tiger's Dan's favorite.
Awesome. All right, for the bestiary today, we are going to cover the Star Tigers. We did see, as Fane entered the room, the Star Tiger jump to attack him. Star Tigers are mystical creatures that are a white tiger with silver stripes and bright blue eyes. The tips of their tails are transparent and ghost-like through the center. Closer to the body, it becomes more solid, more opaque. They have extremely long tails that often grow in length the longer they live, so essentially one of those appendages that never stops growing. Their trial of worth is to venture into the depths of a crystal cavern and make it through a maze that the Star Tigers have created to get to their den. They are tier 3 and go through a fable reproduction, so when a star shard falls into a dark crag and tumbles into a cave, the light of the star shard bouncing off the walls will spawn a single Star Tiger cub that then inhabits the cave. They are able to evoke disintegrating flames, so both Star Tigers and the Arcanist evoke white flames that tear apart anything they touch. It's a little different than a Rizzle, so the Rizzle kind of slowly teleports pieces away, whereas the Star Tiger gouges out and kind of teleports a few inches of material away at a time, so less pixels and more big chunks. They are able to manipulate animals, so they can control and manipulate non-magical animals, but they cannot compel animals to kill themselves or their children, so cannot cause extinction, which is a good thing. Their augmentation is teleportation, so they can augment either themselves, other Star Tigers to teleport. The stronger the Arcanist, the farther that they're able to teleport, and the more objects that can be teleported at once. So very similar to the Rizzle, where as Ilya grew in power, able to teleport farther and take more people with her. When imbuing, the Star Tigers have a magic reduction property, so they reduce any magic coming at them, so making essentially for really great shields because they'll reduce a lot of the magical impact happening. Their aura is the shooting stars, so the sky becomes a black canvas with moving and shimmering stars that slowly fall to the ground, creating craters of destruction. So the stars are teleported into existence from another dimension and often look like crystals. They never strike the Star Tiger themselves or their Arcanist, but will land in kind of the nearby area.
Do you think that one of those could be an egg that's a blender?
I hope so. I want the egg to spawn a blender.
Anytime I see from another dimension, I'm like, oh God, please tell me it's an egg and a blender.
Better be a blender. For innate abilities, they don't get motion sickness, do have incredible balance, and are immune to poisons and venom. Their true form is Gaius-based, so they must collect 112 star shards, so there's our 112 again, and bring them to a cave that has never known light in order to transform. When they do transform, the star shards that they collected are absorbed, and then the tiger glows with a constant magical hue. It kind of looks like it's always snowing. There's kind of stars coming off of it. It's got a cool little aura behind it, and its true form ability is the Celestial Shield. So it reduces the effectiveness of magical attacks, whether it's flames, ice, air, any sort of magic. So these are blunted to not harm as much if they hit the Star Tiger or the Arcanist. They can still be injured, it just takes a lot more to get them there. Within the Frith Chronicles, they're seen as being extremely magical and sought out by mystic seekers and bounty hunters, but they're very rare just because of kind of the unusual circumstances of their birth. So it is a lot of fame that comes with being a Star Tiger Arcanist. And they are based off of the Hindu myth of the Rakshasa, which is a demon who's most powerful at night. So in this myth, they're shapeshifters who can take the appearance of any animals, which is why Star Tigers have their specific manipulation ability to control animals.
That's cool.
They're very cool.
These deep delves into like get me super excited about like, oh, I didn't realize about that.
I know.
That's a creature.
All these powers you don't know they have.
Right. No wonder Dan likes them so much. I can give you that. All right. And with that, we're going to end today's episode. I hope everybody has a great Christmas, and we will be catching you guys for New Year's Day, since this will be recording or dropping. Next recording will be dropping on New Year's Day. And with that, again, I hope everybody got books for Christmas that wanted books. Let us know what you got. If you got anything from Shammy or John or any of your other favorite authors. So with that, thank you guys, and we'll catch you guys next week.